I didn't see it coming. Not the loneliness, not the lies, not the way my whole world would shift underneath me without a sound. I thought we were building something real, something that could survive anything. I thought love was enough. But somewhere along the way, I stopped noticing the cracks. I stopped asking the hard questions. I worked myself to exhaustion, convinced myself it was temporary, told myself good things were just around the corner. I missed bedtime kisses, dance recitals, tiny moments that don't seem important until you realize you can't get them back. And all the while, everything I thought I knew was slipping right through my fingers. Until one day, the truth hit me so hard, I couldn't breathe. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about waking up inside a life you don't recognize and finding the strength to tear it all down just so you can build something real again. And now I want to tell you my story. Not the version I used to believe, but the one that life forced me to face. I still remember that night like it just happened yesterday. It was the summer of 2016, and the rain was coming down so hard it felt like the world itself was falling apart. I was stuck in this tiny diner off the highway, the kind of place with flickering neon lights, the smell of burnt coffee hanging heavy in the air, and a jukebox that only played songs from 30 years ago. The roads were flooded, the bridges closed. My phone had zero service. It felt like being trapped in a forgotten corner of the world. I was sitting there, nursing a cup of coffee that tasted like regret when he walked in. Nicholas, dripping wet, hair plastered to his forehead, leather jacket soaked through, and yet somehow he was still smiling. He asked if he could share my booth because all the others were taken by truckers and locals who looked like they had no plans to leave anytime soon. I said yes without thinking. I think part of me just didn't want to sit there feeling alone anymore. We ended up playing cards with some of the locals, 6 hours straight, with nothing but the sound of laughter, shuffling decks, and the occasional crackle of thunder outside. Nicholas made me laugh when I should have been stressed out of my mind. He had this easy charm about him, not the fake kind, but the kind that made you feel like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. When the storm finally broke and cell service flickered back to life, we exchanged Instagrams. I honestly thought that would be it. One strange, storm-soaked night. One story to tell someday. But a month later, we were dating. 2 years after that, we were married. And not long after, we had Avery, our daughter, our wild, brilliant little hurricane of a girl. For a while, it felt like I had stumbled into one of those rare stories where everything, the love, the family, the future just falls into place. I believed in us. I believed that sometimes when the world throws a storm at you, it's just clearing the way for something beautiful to begin. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that sometimes the real storm doesn't come from the sky. It comes from the people you trust the most. And no matter how strong you think you are, you're never really ready for it. I didn't know it then, but that night changed everything. What started as a random meeting in a storm became the foundation of my entire world. And for a while, it was beautiful. Let me take you back to those first years, when everything still felt whole. Those first months felt like something out of a dream. Nicholas and I spent every moment we could together. Late night drives, lazy Sundays tangled up in laughter, whispered promises about the future. I had never met anyone who made the world feel so full of possibility. He made me believe in things I'd stopped believing in. Within a year, we moved into a tiny, crooked apartment downtown. It had peeling wallpaper and a leaky faucet, but it was ours. We made it beautiful, hand-me-down furniture, fairy lights strung across the living room, a calendar on the fridge where we counted down the days to every little thing that mattered. A year after that, he proposed. It wasn't some grand gesture, no fireworks, no flash mobs, just the two of us sitting on the floor, eating Chinese takeout, when he pulled out a small velvet box and asked if I would spend forever with him. I said yes before he could even finish the sentence. I thought, in that moment, that I was saying yes to a lifetime of this. This messy, beautiful, ordinary kind of love. We got married the following spring in a little park by the river, surrounded by family, friends, and way too many bees buzzing around the flowers. I wore a simple white dress. Nicholas cried when he saw me walking down the aisle. Everyone told us marriage would be hard work, but in those early days, it didn't feel hard at all. We were a team. We faced everything together: tight budgets, long work hours, broken down cars. And then, 2 years into our marriage, came Avery, our wild, brilliant little girl. From the moment I held her, I felt something shift inside me, something I didn't even have words for. Love so fierce, it was almost terrifying. We weren't just Nicholas and me anymore. We were a family. Those first few years with Avery were a blur of midnight feedings, first words, first steps, all the tiny milestones that make up a lifetime. I thought we were happy. I thought we were solid. Sure, we had our arguments. What couple doesn't? Stupid things like who left dishes in the sink or who forgot to buy milk. But I never once doubted that we were on the same side. that we were building something real, something lasting. Looking back now, I realize how much of it I wanted to believe, how easy it is to mistake comfort for security, routine for trust. Until one day, the cracks you ignored become chasms you can't cross. But at that time, I didn't know. I was still living in the story I'd written in my head, the story where love was enough to hold everything together. If you're still here, it means more to me than you know. Sharing this isn't easy. It's like peeling back scars I spent years trying to hide. But I need you to stay with me, because what comes next, it's the part where everything I believed, everything I trusted, starts to slip through my hands. Looking back, I think the first real cracks started small. So small, I almost convinced myself they weren't there. It was Avery who brought it up first. Not with words, but with the way her eyes lit up when she talked about Olivia's ballet classes. About how they got to wear real ballet shoes and pretty pink tutus, and how the teacher let them twirl like real princesses. She begged me, breathless and spinning around the living room. "Please, Mommy, can I dance too?" My heart just shattered a little right then. All I wanted was to say yes, to give her that tiny piece of magic. So that night, over leftover spaghetti and late bills piled on the kitchen counter, I told Nicholas about Avery's wish. I thought he'd smile, maybe even tease me for already pulling up dance class schedules. Instead, he laughed, this short, cold laugh that made my stomach twist. He said, "We can't afford luxuries like that on my salary alone," barely looking up from his phone. His words hit harder than I could admit at the time, because once upon a time, we were a team. Once upon a time, it would have been, "We'll figure it out together," not "your problem, not mine." I sat there, forcing a smile, feeling smaller by the second. Maybe he was right. Maybe I wasn't pulling my weight enough. I had cut back to part-time work after Avery was born. A decision we made together, a decision we promised would be worth it. But now it felt like a loaded weapon aimed straight at me. He pulled up the banking app, waved the screen at me. "Look," he said, "barely anything left after bills." And yeah, the numbers looked tight. But something in my gut told me they shouldn't be this tight. I couldn't explain it, couldn't prove it. So I swallowed the doubt and the shame and the hurt. And I did what I thought a good wife was supposed to do. I picked up a second job, a late-night shift at a diner near our house. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself it was for Avery, for her dreams, for our future. Night after night, I came home so exhausted I could barely stand. Smelling like fryer grease, my feet blistered and aching, missing bedtime kisses and nighttime prayers. Nicholas barely looked up when I stumbled through the door. The one time I said I was tired, he laughed and said, "You don't get to be tired if you're barely contributing." And I still hear those words some nights when I can't sleep. I still remember how small they made me feel. But I didn't fight. I didn't cry. I just smiled and nodded and kept going. Because that's what you do when you still believe you're fighting for something worth saving, when you don't realize yet that the ground beneath you has already started to break apart. I thought exhaustion was the worst of it. I thought if I just worked harder, gave more, it would be enough. But there are some kinds of betrayal you don't see coming, not until they're already living inside your home. Please, stay with me. The next part is where the real cracks start to bleed. It started small, like a hairline crack in a window you don't notice until the glass finally shatters. I was so busy working double shifts, so exhausted trying to hold everything together, that I didn't even realize there was someone else slipping into the spaces I was forced to leave behind. Avery came home one night, chattering away about the zoo, about how Daddy and a new friend named Lisa had taken her there while I was working. I smiled. I told myself it was sweet, that Nicholas was making sure she had fun even when I couldn't be there. But deep down, something in me shifted, a whisper in my gut that said, "Pay attention." Then came more little things, new toys appearing in Avery's room, toys I hadn't bought, brand new outfits, still crisp with the store smell, even as Nicholas told me we couldn't afford $60 a month for ballet classes. And Lisa became a name that floated around our house like perfume you can't quite wash out. Avery would slip up sometimes, calling me Mira instead of Mommy, because that's what Lisa called me behind my back, Mira, like I was some stranger she didn't owe respect to. Every time I brought it up, Nicholas would shut me down. "You're imagining things. She's just a coworker. You're being paranoid." And maybe, for a while, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that exhaustion was playing tricks on me, that the distance I felt was just the cost of chasing dreams for our daughter. But then, one night, I came home early. The house was dark, Nicholas's car was gone, Avery's room was empty. I called him once, twice, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Finally, he answered, casual as anything. "Ice cream," he said. "We're getting ice cream. Be home soon." But when they walked through the door an hour later, Avery wasn't holding a cone. She was bouncing with excitement, talking about the new movie they'd just seen with Lisa. And in that moment, Something inside me broke clean in two. This wasn't just about another woman anymore. It was about another life, one I hadn't been invited into, one that had been growing, thriving, while I was working myself into the ground, believing I was fighting for a family that no longer existed. I could tell you that was the worst of it, that catching the lies, feeling that first deep crack would be the end. But what hurt even more was realizing how easy it was to lose the little person I loved most. Please stay with me, because the next part broke me in ways I never saw coming. I always thought the worst thing someone could do was lie to you, but it's not. The worst thing is when someone makes you feel invisible. When the people you love most start looking right through you, like you're just noise in the background. It started with little things. Avery coming home from Lisa's house with glittery crafts and toy too expensive for tight budgets. Avery mentioning how Lisa made pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, the same pancakes I used to make back before the diner took over my nights. Avery asking if Lisa could come to her birthday party, smiling, so innocent, so excited, not realizing how every word was another tine cut across my heart. I tried to brush it off. I told myself it was good. Avery had another adult who cared about her. I told myself not to be petty, not to make it about me. But deep down, every story she told, every casual mention of Lisa's name, it was like a thread being pulled from the life I thought was ours. And no matter how tightly I tried to hold on, it kept unraveling. Then one morning, over soggy cereal and a rushed goodbye before school, Avery asked if Lisa was going to be her new mommy. I didn't even hear the spoon clatter from my hand. The room tilted. My heart slammed against my ribs, then just stopped. I knelt down, tried to smile like my world wasn't collapsing, and asked, "Why would you think that, sweetheart?" She shrugged, said it like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Because Daddy says Lisa is special, and sometimes I sleep at her house, and she has my unicorn toothbrush." That was the moment I realized Lisa wasn't just some coworker. She wasn't just a friend. She had a place in my daughter's life, a room, a toothbrush, a future that didn't have my name anywhere in it. I hugged Avery so tightly that morning she squirmed in my arms. After she left for school, I sat in the kitchen for a long time, staring at nothing, feeling like I'd fallen through the floor of my own life. That night, I tried to talk to Nicholas again. I asked about Lisa, about Avery, about what was happening to us. He didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He just looked at me with this hollow, tired expression and said, "Maybe if you were more fun, she'd still call you Mommy." I can't describe the kind of silence that followed, the way those words echoed through me, louder and louder, until I couldn't hear anything else. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just walked upstairs, kissed Avery goodnight, and sat in the dark outside her door, listening to her breathe. I stayed there for hours, trying to memorize the sound of her little breaths, trying to hold on to something real, something they couldn't take away from me. Because I knew, deep down, in a place I wasn't ready to admit yet, I was already losing her. Not because Avery stopped loving me, but because the life I had built, the foundation I had trusted, was already gone. And I was the only one still pretending it could be saved. Have you ever found yourself holding on to something that was already gone, loving someone so fiercely that you didn't notice when they stopped loving you back? I wouldn't wish that kind of heartbreak on anyone. If you're listening right now, please promise yourself you'll never ignore the quiet ways your heart starts breaking. Stay with me, because the next part of my story is when I finally stopped pretending. There comes a moment when the pretending just stops. It doesn't always happen in a scream or a fight or some grand explosion. Sometimes it's quieter. Sometimes it's just the sound of your own heart breaking and the sudden bone-deep realization that you can't live like this anymore. For me, it happened one rainy Wednesday afternoon. I was standing in Avery's room, picking up toys she'd left scattered everywhere when I found it. A small stack of photographs tucked inside her dresser drawer. Pictures of Avery, Nicholas, and Lisa at amusement parks, at a water park, at a Christmas party I hadn't even known existed. Every photo had a date written on the back, neat little numbers that told a story I hadn't been invited into. Some of them were taken months ago, back when I thought Nicholas was working late, when I was scraping together diner tips to buy Avery ballet shoes she never even got to wear. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down on the floor. I flipped through each photo, one by one, feeling the world tilt further and further off its axis. They looked like a family, not mine, theirs. And for the first time, I couldn't deny it anymore. I couldn't excuse it. I couldn't tell myself, maybe I misunderstood, or maybe he still loves me. I realized then, if I didn't act now, I was going to lose Avery completely, not just to Nicholas, but to a life where I was nothing more than a faded memory. That night, after Avery fell asleep, clutching a stuffed unicorn Lisa had probably bought her, I made myself a promise. No more guessing, no more hoping he would come back. No more pretending the foundation wasn't already crumbling. I needed the truth, all of it. The next morning, while Nicholas was at work, I drove to our bank, hands trembling, stomach in knots, feeling like I was about to do something illegal, even though I had every right. I told the teller I needed copies of our statements. She hesitated, giving me that polite, wary look. But when I showed her my ID, my name, right there next to his on the account, she printed them out without another word. I sat there in the car afterward, flipping through the pages, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the world. Transfers, hundreds, then thousands of dollars, month after month, sent to an account I didn't even know existed. Charges at restaurants, hotels, amusement parks, jewelry stores, plane tickets, all while I was working myself into the ground, believing we were broke. $20,000 gone, and I hadn't even known we had it. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up, combing through every document, every receipt, every tiny piece of our lives, gathering them like pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to finish. And the picture it made was so much uglier than I had dared to imagine. But it was real. For the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't living in some half-lit lie. I saw the truth. I held it in my hands, and I knew, deep in my bones, it was time to fight for myself. It was time to fight for Avery. Finding the truth didn't make the pain go away. It made it sharper. It made it real. But sometimes, the only way to take your life back is to walk straight through the wreckage without looking away. If you're still here, stay with me, because the next part of my story is where I stop surviving and start fighting. I spend so long waiting for things to get better, waiting for him to come back, waiting for some miracle to fix what had already been shattered beyond repair. But standing there with those bank statements in my hand, I realized no miracle was coming. If I wanted to save anything, myself, my daughter, my future, I was going to have to do it with my own two hands. The first thing I did was shift my schedule at the diner. No more nights away, no more missed bedtimes, no more letting another woman slip into the spaces I was too exhausted to fill. I started small, picking Avery up from school myself instead of letting Nicholas handle it, taking her out for ice cream after school, just the two of us, sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, letting her teach me her favorite dance moves, even though I had the coordination of a newborn giraffe. And slowly, something shifted. She laughed louder. She reached for my hand first, She started calling me Mommy again. Not Mira, not the distant name she had picked up from Lisa's careless lips. Every moment was a battle. Every giggle, every hug, every whispered bedtime story was me clawing my way back into her heart. I didn't have a grand plan yet. But I knew one thing. I was done playing defense. I was done standing still while someone else tried to take my place. I found a lawyer, a woman recommended by a friend of a friend, someone who specialized in messy cases like mine. I sat in her office, clutching my folder of evidence like it was a life raft. Bank statements, pictures, text messages, proof that I wasn't crazy, proof that I hadn't imagined the way my life was being dismantled piece by piece. She listened, took notes. When I finally stopped talking, when my voice cracked from the weight of it all, she looked at me and said, "You have more strength than you think, and you have a case." Those words hit me harder than anything Nicholas had ever thrown my way. Strength. I hadn't felt strong in so long. I almost didn't recognize the word attached to me. That night, when Avery crawled into bed with me, tiny, warm, trusting, I held her close and made another promise. I would not let him or anyone take her from me. I would not let her grow up thinking love meant abandonment, or lies, or being second best. I didn't know exactly how it would all unfold. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew there would be tears, courtrooms, ugly words hurled across conference tables. But for the first time in a long time, I felt ready. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was fighting, fighting for my daughter, fighting for myself, fighting for the life we still deserved, even if it looked nothing like the life I once imagined. I knew I couldn't hide anymore. Every lie, every betrayal was stacked high, ready to crash down with a single push. My hands were trembling. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear myself think. But I had the truth, and I had nothing left to lose. Stay with me, because what happens next changes everything. The day of the anniversary party, the sky was heavy with clouds. I remember staring at the gray horizon, feeling like even the weather knew what was coming. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, not from fear, but from everything I'd been carrying. Months of betrayal, exhaustion, heartbreak, all coiled tight inside my chest, ready to snap. Nicholas was already there when I pulled up, pacing outside like a man waiting for a verdict. He knew he wouldn't win. He rushed toward me the moment I stepped out of the car, his voice low, frantic. "We need to talk, alone." I didn't stop. I just smiled, calm, polite, and walked right past him, Avery's tiny hand tucked safely in mine. Inside, the house buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, the easy warmth of a family celebration. For a second, it almost fooled me. Almost. Nicholas's mother hugged Avery tightly, her smile faltering just a little when she looked at me. Maybe she knew. Maybe somewhere deep down, she'd always known. I didn't give myself time to hesitate. I pulled out the folder from my bag, thick, heavy, undeniable, and placed it on the dining room table where everyone could see. Conversations faltered, heads turned. Nicholas froze. "What's that?" his father asked, voice gruff, suspicious. I looked straight at Nicholas, straight through him. "The truth," I said quietly, "about what's been happening, about who Nicholas really is." His mother opened the folder first. I watched her face change as she flipped through the documents, the bank statements, the secret transfers, the photos of Nicholas and Lisa playing house with my daughter. Nicholas moved to grab the folder, but his father stopped him with a hand on his arm. "Sit down," he said, voice like stone. Lisa arrived a few minutes later, clutching a gift bag, her smile bright, until she saw the room, until she saw the folder. She hesitated at the door, looking to Nicholas for some kind of rescue. He couldn't move. His sister, sharp-eyed, no patience for bullshit, was the one who spoke first. "Did you know he was married when you started playing house with my niece?" Lisa stammered something about how Nicholas said we were separated, how he made it sound different. But the words sounded weak even as they fell out of her mouth. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, "Oh my God." And Nicola finally spoke, voice cracking. "It's complicated. Our marriage wasn't working. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I laughed. A sharp, broken sound that barely felt like it belonged to me. "You didn't mean to empty our bank account. You didn't mean to buy a condo behind my back. You didn't mean to let another woman tuck my daughter into bed while I was working double shifts at a diner to save our family." Silence. Thick, suffocating. His mother started crying, soft, broken sobs into her napkin. His father's face was carved from stone. Lisa turned and fled, the gift bag abandoned by the door. I stood there, heart hammering, legs shaking, feeling stripped bare, but free. For the first time in so long, I wasn't the one lying. I wasn't the one covering bruises you couldn't see. I gathered Avery into my arms. Her small arms looped around my neck, her trust still whole, still mine. I turned to Nicholas, met his pleading eyes, and said, "You made your choices, now I'm making mine." And then we left. We walked out of that house, away from the wreckage, into the heavy, humid air of a world that, for once, was mine to rebuild. Exposing the truth didn't set me free the way I thought it would. It broke everything wide open: my marriage, my home, the life I thought I was building. There's no guidebook for what comes after the truth, no map for picking up the pieces when the life you loved no longer exists. Stay with me, because the hardest part wasn't uncovering the lies. It was learning how to live without them. Leaving that house felt like stepping off a cliff. I had spent so long fighting for the truth, for my daughter, for myself, but I hadn't prepared for what came after. The silence, the way the world didn't stop spinning, even though mine had cracked wide open. I moved back into my mother's house for a while. A tiny guest room crammed with old photo albums and dusty furniture. It wasn't home, but it was safe. And after everything, safe felt like a luxury. Avery clung to me those first few nights. She didn't ask for her dad. She didn't ask for Lisa. She just buried her face in my chest and whispered, "Don't leave me, Mommy." And I didn't. I held her until her breathing evened out, until the trembles left her tiny body. And even after she slept, I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how you rebuild a life from nothing. Filing for divorce was like cutting off a limb. Necessary, brutal. Nicholas didn't make it easy. He filed counterclaims. He accused me of being unstable, too emotional to raise Avery alone. I showed up at every meeting, every court date, armed with facts, bank statements, photos, testimony from teachers and neighbors who had seen too much. I didn't let him rewrite the story. Not this time. Some days, it felt like drowning in paperwork and legal fees. Other days, it was the memories that tried to pull me under. The late night dances in the kitchen, the Christmas mornings, the way he used to look at me like I was his whole world. Was it ever real, or was I just someone convenient until I wasn't? Those questions haunted me, still do sometimes. But Avery needed me whole, not broken, not hollowed out by someone else's betrayal. So I built a new routine: morning pancakes, even when we were running late. After school ice cream dates, even when my bank account trembled at the indulgence. Late night dance parties in our pajamas, even when my heart was too heavy to move. Every small act of joy was a brick in the foundation of our new life. And slowly, Avery smiled more. She danced more. She trusted more. And maybe the most miraculous thing, I started trusting myself again, too. Nicholas tried to show up sometimes, with gifts, with apologies wrapped in pretty words. But Avery would cling to my hand and hide her face in my side. She remembered. Kids always remember, even when we wish they wouldn't. After 6 grueling months, the divorce was finalized. I was granted primary custody, financial support that barely covered groceries. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that Avery was with me, safe, loved. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is still and Avery is asleep in the next room, I let myself remember, not to hurt, but to honor the woman I was, the woman who fought for her daughter even when her world fell apart. I lost so much, but I found something too. I found that I am stronger than I ever knew. I found that healing doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments, in choices, in stubborn, breathtaking hope. We're not the family I once dreamed of. We're something different, something honest, something real. And honestly, I wouldn't trade this hard-won life for anything in the world. Surviving heartbreak isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of something braver, something stronger. I lost so much more than I ever thought I could survive. But in the spaces where everything fell apart, I found something new. A life not built on illusions or fear or desperation, but on truth. Stay with me just a little longer, because what comes next is the start of everything beautiful. Starting over was terrifying. I won't lie and say it was easy. There were nights when the fear still crept in, whispering doubts into the darkness. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't building a life around someone else's lies. I was building it for us, for Avery, and for me. I went back to school part-time, juggling classes between shifts at the diner. It wasn't glamorous, it was exhausting. But every exam I passed, every late-night paper I finished, felt like laying down another brick in the foundation of the life I wanted. Slowly, things began to change. I got a better job, one that respected my time, my effort, my mind. The diner became a memory, a place that had kept us afloat when we had nothing else, but no longer the place that defined our survival. I found a small house, nothing fancy, but ours, with a yellow door and a backyard big enough for Avery to dance in. And Avery, she bloomed. Dance recitals, birthday parties, sleepovers filled with giggles and dreams too big to fit in one lifetime. She still asks about the past sometimes. She still carries scars, invisible but real. But mostly, she laughs now. She dreams without fear. She knows she is loved, fiercely, endlessly, by someone who will never leave. Financially, things got better too. Slowly at first, then all at once. I took a chance on myself, started a small online business, something I'd always dreamed of but never thought I deserved. It grew, bigger than I ever imagined, and with it came freedom. Freedom to say yes to Avery's dreams. Freedom to say yes to my own. We traveled, little trips at first, then bigger ones. We saw oceans, mountains, cities that once only lived in Avery's storybooks. There were moments I would catch her staring out the window of a plane or laughing uncontrollably on a beach somewhere and think, this, this is what surviving was for, not to just exist, but to live, to really, truly live. As for Nicholas, he became a chapter we closed, a lesson we learned. I don't hate him anymore. I don't even think about him much. My story isn't about what he did. It's about what we built after. Avery and me. A family, imperfect, messy, loud with laughter and quiet with love. A life that, for all its cracks and scars, shines more brightly than anything I could have dreamed back in that tiny, storm-soaked diner 8 years ago. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. You can survive the worst things that happen to you. You can lose everything you thought you needed and still find something better waiting for you on the other side. Not just survival, not just getting by, but joy, freedom, home, a new beginning. I'm really grateful you stayed with me through this. It's not easy listening to someone pull back the layers of a broken life. But you did. You stayed. And that means more to me than I can say. This wasn't just a story about being betrayed. It was a story about finding something stronger on the other side. I know what it's like to feel lost, to feel like you're drowning in something you didn't choose. And if you're feeling that way right now, I just want you to know you're not alone. You're not broken beyond repair. We all carry scars, but we also carry the strength it takes to heal. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting me share a piece of my heart with you. I hope you find your own new beginning too.